I may have just made a massive mistake because I just swapped my Mercedes E350 for this. A 2013 Peugeot 208 GTI.
Which is a bit of a gamble in itself because in my opinion, this 208 GTI is a downgrade from the Mercedes that I swapped it for. But this series isn't about the cars in particular, it's about climbing the ladder for the end goal. The Mercedes E350 was a luxury 3-litre V6 diesel with around 300 horsepower, whereas this Peugeot is only a 1.6 turbo petrol with 200 horsepower.
Which of course leaves the question of why did I swap?
I'm trying to swap my way up to owning a supercar, and the only way that it's going to work is if each car I swap for is worth more than the last. Although the Mercedes E350 was a much nicer car, by swapping it for the 208 GTI, it's 4 years newer, the value of the car has increased and the mileage of the car has decreased. So on paper, this is a step in the right direction. See, I can't really pick and choose which cars I swap for. If it makes money, it makes sense because I'm not willing to give up on one day getting the keys to my own supercar.
But for now, there's a few issues with this car that is stopping me from swapping it on.
Of course, this being a Peugeot, it has a few issues that I've got to fix before I can swap it.
So, let me quickly run you through those issues. The first one is the ambient temperature sensor. Although at the moment it is reading correctly, the sensor has been known to show minus 32 degrees, which, yeah, I don't think it's anywhere near that. So that is definitely an issue that we're going to have to dive into. The next issue is to do with the actual temperature of the car. This, while I'm driving, takes absolutely ages to warm up, but while the car is sat idling on the driveway, it warms up a lot quicker. So I think we've got a thermostat problem on our hands. Now, in the engine bay, we also have a couple of issues. The first one being this rocker cover. It is actually leaking oil pretty much all the way around. So we're going to need to get this replaced with buying a new rocker cover gasket. Not only that, but we have a weird issue with this oil cap where it's kind of loose and keeps coming loose, but I can't actually get it out the rocker cover. I don't know what has gone on here. I don't know if it is a common issue on these 208s, but that is one we are going to need to sort because that is currently chucking oil all over this engine bay. So we need a new thermostat, a new rocker cover gasket, a new oil cap, and we've got to look at the ambient temperature sensor to see if it's a wiring issue or if it is the sensor itself. But luckily for you guys, I have already gone out and bought all the parts that we're going to need to fix this Peugeot. So here we have got a brand new oil cap, we have got a brand new thermostat in its housing with brand new coolant temperature sensors all around, and we also have a brand new rocker cover gasket. And one thing I have also done is bought myself a whiteboard so I can put down everything that we need to do on the cars and also the prices of everything it's taken to get these cars fixed, so you guys know exactly how much I'm spending.
So for the oil cap, that only cost £9.57p. The rocker cover gasket was £19.78p, and for the thermostat, that was £29.99p.
Now bear in mind that these parts are provided by Motorstop, who do kindly help me out with all of the parts for my cars. So whether these prices are the same for you guys or not, I'm just telling you what I have personally spent. And of course, a shout out to Motorstop for always coming through with the parts. So we've got the parts, you guys know how much I've spent. Let's get this Peugeot sorted once and for all, and then we can move it straight on. And I think to start with, we should dive into that ambient temperature sensor.
Now on most cars, the ambient temperature sensor is located in the front bumper, which would mean I'd have to take the entire bumper off to have a look at the wiring for the sensor. But on these cars, for some reason, they're located in the driver's side wing mirror, as you can see here with the little nipple that sticks out under the wing mirror. So I'm going to go ahead and get this wing mirror stripped so we can get to that sensor. And while I'm getting this wing mirror stripped, if I can ask you guys a huge favour, because over 60% of you watching this video are currently not subscribed to the channel, and I am less than 10,000 subscribers away from reaching 100,000. So if you could hit that subscribe button down below, that would mean the world. And now that's all out the way, all I've got to do is just pop that sensor out of place and figure out a way of testing if it works.
I think the best way to test if the sensor or the wiring is to simply unplug the sensor from where it plugs into and see if it actually changes on the dashboard. If it doesn't, then it is a obviously wiring issue. If it does, then it is a sensor issue, which is the easier of the two. So I'm going to try and find where this actually plugs into, get it unplugged, and hopefully it just reads absolutely nothing on the dashboard, which will mean that this sensor here is faulty.
So now I'm just going to follow the sensor wires down by undoing the tape to find where I can actually unplug it.
So here I was trying to unravel all this tape to try and find where this temperature sensor plugs into, but no, amazing Peugeot, you can't actually unplug and plug these sensors in and out. You have to just snip them and solder the new sensor on. Why they would do that, I have no idea, but that is, well, what we're going to have to do. I'm going to have to get a multimeter and actually see if there's voltage going to, well, this sensor, or cut one of the wires, see what it says on the dashboard, and if it doesn't change, then I'll just have to solder it back together. So there is only one person we can call when it comes to wiring. Hello!
I've not done my hair.
But the annoying thing we're getting now is it's actually reading the correct kind of temperature. So we're having a bit of a predicament. What are you thinking with this one?
If it's a wire, it would do the same thing all the time if you've got a wire broke.
Right.
So if you've got a wire broke in the door, it would do the same thing.
So it'd stay like minor.
So we've got to eliminate what a break in the wire is. So if we cut the sensor here,
Yes.
then see what the temp does, and it'll either read nothing, but I can't see if a wire would read anything. So we've got to eliminate a wire. So we've got to.
So we're leaning more towards the sensor at the moment.
So we've got to
Chop the
word I'm
wire.
looking for. Chop the wire to make it so we know that if a wire was broke, what it's doing.
Typically, it's not. If it was on negative or minus 34 right now, we could chop a wire and know and see if that fluctuates. But I think the best thing to do, like you say, is just chop the wire.
Just chop the wire and just rejoin it and see what it does.
Right, do the honours.
Ignition off.
Ignition off. Key out. No going back now.
Now see what it does.
Right. Key in. Oh, we're at 88.
Right, so it's not a wire, is it?
We'll go get a new sensor from Motorstop tomorrow and we'll solder it back in. Thanks, Dad.
Right, can I get the kebab?
Yeah, go on.
Ooh, top.
So I'm going to head over to Motorstop, who have got the new sensor in stock and ready to collect.
And as easy as that, we have got that temperature sensor. Shout out to Motorstop. We can finally get this horrible mess sorted out. Morning, Dad.
I've not done the hair. Again?
So now my dad can completely snip off the old sensor and start soldering on the new one.
Moment of truth. Let's see if that has worked. And if nothing to do with Dad. 19. We're reading now. Gone up to 20, but we have been handling it. We've been holding it, so. Well, it's not negative flipping 32, so I guess all I can really do is just keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't drop to negative 30 something.
So as long as that temperature doesn't drop to around -30 and -20, then I guess we can call this one fully fixed, which luckily after driving it around for a little bit longer, it didn't. So we can tick this one off the list.
Thanks again, Dad.
Sound like an American negative.
Negative. Now, of course, with the temperature sensor being faulty, we do have to add that onto the price of what this car has cost to fix. But luckily, it was only £16.80. And one thing we can also do is now cross that problem off, because that problem is now solved. And all it leaves me to do to complete this job once and for all is just put everything back together. So to get this wing mirror back together, I've just got to do everything in the reverse order of when I took it off, trying to not break any of the plastic clips. And now we've got a fully working wing mirror with an ambient temperature sensor that actually works as well. Well, that is one job taken care of. We now have a perfectly working ambient temperature in the car, which is good news. Now, the next issue I'm going to sort out is the rocker cover gasket, because if we look at this engine bay, the thermostat is underneath all of this intake and all the way down here, kind of, well, underneath all this. So by me doing the rocker cover first, I'm going to be removing most of this out the way anyway, so we can almost kill two in one. This thermostat is, yeah, it does look like it's going to be a little bit of a job to get to, but I'm willing to give it a go, and I'm willing to persevere and just see how I get on doing it. If it went on, it can come off. So to make a start on this rocker cover gasket, I'm going to get all these boost pipes out of my way to give me better access to all the bolts underneath. And now they're out the way, I can get the intake pipe off that goes to the turbo, and then unplug the coil packs and start unbolting the 10 bolts holding the rocker cover to the engine. There we go. And luckily I can now confirm that the invoice that I got with the car is true, because this has definitely had a new timing chain. And now we can actually get rid of this horrible, failed, nasty rocker cover gasket. Like I say, I don't know if this is the original, but it's coming out anyway. Because, well, it's leaking. So I'm going to completely remove this old worn rocker cover gasket, and now I can replace it with the new one, remembering to also put the O-rings in for all the cylinder holes. Now I'm just going to clean the surface where the rocker cover gasket is going to sit on the engine, and now I can start by putting everything back in reverse order, starting with the coil packs and then the 10 bolts that were holding the rocker cover down. The rocker cover is all back down, nice and tight. Everything is plugged back in that I need plugging back in, so we can actually tick that job off the list. One thing that we're missing now though is the oil cap, so let's get the new one out and see if that fits. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, the big moment of truth. Please work. Yes. I don't know why that originally came loose, why this one was so loose, but we've got a nice fresh one now. That is a job well done, and I'll remember my grips. And to finish this job completely, I'm just going to put this crossover pipe back in place, and also this boost pipe going down to the front intercooler. Well, we are absolutely sailing through these problems. We can now tick the oil cap off because that is all sorted. The last thing it leaves us to do is the thermostat, which I'm not really looking forward to, if I'm honest, at all. Let's get it done. And from the research that I've done and the information that I've gathered from various people, this is an absolute nightmare of a job. But we've got to get it done one way or another. So I'm going to get the battery out of the way, get this intake pipe out of the way, and also remove the battery tray just to give us as much access as possible. The thermostat is located, well,
I can't actually show you because it's that hidden. There's a wiring harness in the way, there's loads of plugs in the way, and somehow I've got to get to the 3 bolts holding it to the engine block. Now, although these clips are sped up and it looks like I actually got this done pretty quick, it was probably about a 2-hour job just to remove this thermostat completely. But I managed to get it done.
Oh my God. It's out.
This was just one of those jobs that I could barely see what I was doing, so I had to use the sense of touch to try and work out how to get all the coolant hoses off of the thermostat, which there was 6 in total.
That is hands down the most frustrating thing I've ever done in my entire life. That just ain't fun. But I think that's definitely knackered.
So without wasting any time, so I can't forget where any of the plugs or the sensors go, I'm going to get the new thermostat back in place and try and get it all fitted. But then I ran into a little bit of an issue.
I'm at a little bit of a dead end. So we've got this new wiring harness, but there is no instructions on which one goes to which plug. If you look down here, you can see that there's obviously now 2 new plugs. One of them is right down there behind that coolant kind of hose. Well, behind that coolant hose, it's right down there. So I don't want to go any further at the moment and then not be able to plug it in. So looking online, there is literally no diagrams whatsoever. There's no YouTube videos, nothing to tell you which plug goes into which sensor. At this point, I'm wondering, does it even matter? But I don't want to put it all back together, bleed it with coolant, and then end up having to take it all apart because I can't find which one goes to which. So at the moment, I'm a bit stumped.
The reason for this is that when you buy a new thermostat for one of these cars, they don't actually match the original part. Although the part numbers are the same, the actual product isn't. That's why we've ended up with an extra wire to plug into the existing harness. I don't know why they do this, it's just a Peugeot thing, but it's something to bear in mind if you're doing one of these yourself.
Right, we are back to square one. I have took it out and I'm just going to start again because this is quite confusing. But again, shout out to T Servicing. I think Tashan has actually sussed what should be going on with this, well, extra sensor. We're pretty sure, well, he's pretty sure that green goes to brown. So I'm going to clip that in there. If it isn't, we're just going to have to take it all out and redo it. But sometimes he said that these sensors actually come and they're green instead of brown, so it makes sense for the green to go to the green, and then obviously this sensor on the other side is black, so the black goes to the black. That's what we're rolling with, that's what we're going to give it a go and find out. But now I've just got to re-put everything back in. Honestly, I can't believe how much of a fiddly job this is, trying to line them 3 bolt holes up while trying to fight this wiring harness. It's an absolute nightmare, but I'm the only one here that can get it done, so we've got to persevere and finish this job. So let's carry on.
So I'm going to do my best to get this new thermostat in place without kinking any of the wires or breaking any of the coolant hoses. It's such a hard job to do on your own, trying to move the wiring harness out the way while you're trying to get the thermostat in place. But again, we managed to do it. I guess it's just a fact that I've got no one else to help me, so I've got to get it done one way or another. Now it's just a matter of trying to remember which coolant hose goes to which port on that thermostat, and of course remembering which plugs go to where.
So I'm about probably halfway through. That sensor is plugged in all the way down there, and then that comes out at the bottom here to plug into what will then be this sensor here. I think I've made sense of it. This is a sensor that goes down into this hole, and then I've got to figure out which one plugs into which. I think this will plug into that one, and then that will plug into the new harness. I think that's right, but we're about halfway through. I've got the two front hoses connected, so if we look at the old one, I've got this one connected, I've got this one connected, and I've also got this one connected. The only issue now is this one, all the way down the back underneath the inlet manifold, back down here. You can't even see it with a torch. Somehow I've got to try and get this kind of V-clamp over, well, that kind of housing all the way back down there, and there is quite literally zero room to do it.
It's nearly impossible to explain what I'm actually on about, and it's also nearly impossible to actually show you because it's that buried down the back of the engine that you can't even see it yourself. But where the arrow's pointed to on the screen is where I've got to try and get that V-clip, which is near on impossible. So it was time to call in some more brain power, an extra set of hands, and some flashlights.
Right, I don't care what anyone says. How bad was that?
Well, it's Peugeot.
So with extra flashlights and having a bit better access with more things removed, you can now see where the clip was supposed to go.
If you look from down here, it's facing towards the engine block, so that clip is facing up that way. So once the thermostat is in place, it's virtually impossible to get that clip in. Why Peugeot didn't just think to make it so you could get that clamp on that way, so you could just come around the back here and ping and it goes in. BMW engine.
So if you're ever doing one of them, you need a pair of these.
Yeah, so I just didn't have them tools.
If you're listening, Snap-on, sponsor.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I could not have done that without Dad's lights and, well, kind of expertise. I was trying to faff around. I was trying to faff around with my phone, but that, I mean, that's got to be in, hasn't it? That has to be in. Shall I give it a little push? What, it pushed it down? Right, that was the hardest thing I think I've ever faced on a car, but at the moment it's in. It was a bit of a two-man job. I had to kind of pull the wiring harness out the way, hold a light, and one person had to try and get it on. That was difficult, but we can now carry on.
And if anyone that's done this job before could let me know in the comments if I missed something to make my life easier, then I would love to know. The thing is with this channel is I will upload the good, bad and the ugly of working on cars on your driveway, and unfortunately this one has took so much time up in the video because it was such an awkward job.
I'm pretty sure all of the coolant pipes are now connected back to that thermostat. I'm just trying to make sure that's right. There's 6 going to this, them 3 are done, them 2 are done, and that 1 is done. Okay, I think we are good to go. Hopefully I can remember where everything plugs in. Some of them are pretty obvious because some wires don't stretch to some connectors, so some of them are quite obvious, some of them are quite difficult. I mean, we've got a exposed, is that in here? I've got to pull that through. Yeah, that's in there. That'll just be a vacuum. I think before I start putting all that up, the thing is, I'm not going to know if anything's leaking until I put everything back on.
So with that being said, I guess I better just hurry up and get everything back together and all working. I'm going to plug this new wiring harness in. I think that's the right way. I guess we'll find out a bit later on. And now we can start installing all the parts that we took off to get to the thermostat. Starting with the intake box and then moving on to the intake pipes and also the intake duct that goes underneath the intake pipes. And now last but not least, I can get the battery tray refitted with the 3 10mm bolts holding it down and then refit the battery.
Right, I think that's everything. I am 99% sure everything is plugged in to the right place. I'm pretty sure I haven't missed anything. If I have, then it's going to be a big job, and if that thermostat leaks, then it's going to be an even bigger job. The only problem is if it does start leaking, there's kind of no way of running the car with being able to see which hose is leaking, because the battery and everything now is in the way. So if this does leak, this could be a major issue. But I've followed the kind of where the wires kind of want to be. Obviously that goes to the MAF sensor, then that comes off there, then that one looks like it just wants to sit there, and they kind of just look how they kind of should. I said kind of way too much then, but all I've got to do now is the last job, and that is mix a 50-50 ratio of coolant and water, fill this up, and then we're going to run the car up to temperature and hope to God that it doesn't leak any coolant. Please, please. Right, last job.
So I'm going to mix a 50-50 ratio of coolant and water and start filling this car up with coolant. Once I've done that, I'm going to check for leaks, and now I guess it's time to turn this car on for the first time in 2 days.
There we go, moment of truth. The ignition comes on. Come on. I think we're... Oh, really?
And of course, if it wasn't bad enough worrying about if it was going to leak, we now have an engine light on the dashboard. But the engine seems to sound healthy, and also there is no leaks underneath. So all I'm going to do now is just run the car through the diagnostics. Bearing in mind the battery has been off and I've unplugged quite a lot of sensors. So I'm hoping that once I've cleared all these faults, none of them actually come back.
Okay, they are all erased. Let's turn the car back on and see what comes back on.
And luckily that engine light actually went off and stayed off, so I ran the car up to temperature to find out that it wasn't overheating. It sat at its normal operating temperature and didn't move from there.
Okay, the car is at about 90 on the dashboard, and on the live data it's at 78, which I've just double checked with Danny from Woodborough Garage, and that is pretty much right. That's kind of, these aren't accurate to the point. This is, so that is how hot the coolant temperature is. The good thing is that it is actually working, so we fixed it. I think that is a working Peugeot. I just checked underneath the car, there is no drips. Well, there is drips, but they're cold from when obviously all the coolant spilt everywhere. So it's not leaking. We've got no lights on the dashboard. We're not overheating. We're staying at temperature. I think we've sorted it. I think we've sorted it.
And once again, with the mindset of not giving up until the job is done, we've managed to finish it and complete this car once and for all.
Well, once again, we got a broken car and we've fixed it. It is now perfectly up to scratch. And now we can officially tick the thermostat off the list, which completes all the jobs that we needed to do on the 208 GTI. Which brings the total of repairing this 208 GTI to £76.14, which I don't think is too bad at all, judging by the fact that most mechanics charge about £70 an hour labour, and we've managed to fix all the issues, including parts, all for £76. So I think that is a great result.
But now it's all taken care of, it begs the question as to what we should do with this Peugeot 208 GTI now it's all fixed.
And I've got to be honest, I think I do agree with the comments, and that we shouldn't waste any time modifying each car. We should do that at the very end to the supercar that I'll end up with. So, like always, this Peugeot is fixed and is now fully working. And obviously, it goes without saying, if you guys have anything that you would like to swap for this Peugeot 208 GTI, then let me know in the comments or contact me on Instagram, which is just my name, Jesse Collingham. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
You wear a hat they call dad. Me, I'm the dad in a hat. You just like clubbing and clothes. Me, I like afternoon naps. 3 happy meals for the road. My oldest like counting racks. My middle one, she's in a dirt bike. My youngest is just like a mom.